So welcome everyone to the Co-Creators Convergence Thursday night Creator Convos. I'm Noelle Marshall, and I'm here with my beloved.
Hi everyone, this is Bob. We are so pleased, LeeAnn, that you have brought Jeanne here to share her gifts to the shift in humanity. Barbara Marx Hubbard is smiling. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for being here tonight, those of you in the room. And if you're on Facebook, you're welcome to join us here in the room, because we do going to have some interactive Q&A with Jeanne and LeeAnn. So they have some beautiful conversation planned for us this evening. But before we begin, I want to tell you a little bit about the Co-Creators Convergence and what we have coming up in March. So please stand by. So that is a little bit about the Co-Creators Convergence. And I want to say welcome again to all of you. Very excited about this topic tonight. And I want to tell you, my dear friend LeeAnn Heltzel, we've been together for quite a while. And LeeAnn is a very magical being, an empath. And we know her, we've traveled to Damanhur, Italy. We've had a lot of travels together, and we have something coming up in April to the Mary Magdalene event, I believe. So let me tell you a little bit about, she's born a creative empath. LeeAnn is most comfortable unearthing her next grandest adventure, exploring what is possible within the capacities of our human potential and integrating these abilities into practical application. So her meta art and ocular meditation, I've done it many times. It's fantastic. I've seen it in person, online, on her Facebook. It's wonderful. It breaks into new evolutionary territory of how we bypass the thinking mind to expand our consciousness into higher, more refined spaces of all our divinity. And I will say she is my divine sister. She also has a Facebook page, Sister of Sister, and she has wonderful events there. So look for LeeAnn on Facebook and her group, Sister of Sister. So LeeAnn is going to introduce our guest for tonight, Jeanne White Eagle. And she's also going to lead us in a meditation. So LeeAnn, Bob and I are going to bow out, and we're going to turn it over to you and to Jeanne. We just ask everyone along the way, if you want to put your questions and comments in the chat, we welcome them there. So thank you, everyone, and welcome to our evening tonight. Thank you so much.
No, great. And thank you so much, Noelle, and welcome everybody. I'm super excited to have this conversation with Jeanne tonight. You're just going to find it out of this world, right? and in this world. So I think before we begin, it would be nice. Let's just do a nice centering, take some breaths and really ground ourselves into the conversation. And then I'll introduce you, Jeanne, and we'll dive in. So if everybody could just close their eyes and just take a nice deep breath in together and out. Another breath in and out. We leave the stressfulness of the day behind us, and we enter a very liminal space where we're meeting here in this online existence, and yet also in a liminal space of a room together, where the air is different. It's electrifying in the sense of it's cleansing, it's clearing, it's energizing, and at the same time, it's balancing us. So with every breath in and exhaling out, we feel more grounded, more balanced, and more connected into our own divinity, to the environment around us, and to these deep words of wisdom that we're about to listen to, and all the energy of love and evolution that we will be witnessing tonight through this wisdom that Jeanne will be giving us. And we can sense all these beloved individuals in this space together here, out into the greater span of individuals that may hear this recording in the future. We'll just take one final breath in again together and out. And open your eyes when you're ready and return to the space. And I know that was short, but we have so much to talk about tonight. So it is my absolute honor to introduce everyone here to Jeanne White Eagle. Jeanne is a visionary, an educator, author, and speaker. She's the co-founder and president of the Interstellar Community Foundation, or what we call IFC. And this nonprofit is in the process of creating a cradle-to-cradle educational system. And all of this that her foundation is creating and birthing, in the process of birthing right now, has come through visions that Jeanne had beginning as a young girl. And these will be actual structures and that she calls universities, and we'll really be diving into this. It's a system that makes use of a specially designed campus and series of buildings surrounded by sustainable communities of the future for the purpose of maximizing and sustaining the highest human potential and the eventful, overt interaction with extraterrestrials and non-human intelligence. Doesn't sound like any small feat. And to quote astronaut Edgar Mitchell, which was one of the founding partners of the foundation, he says of this vision, "It is a how-to blueprint to put us on the track towards achieving a higher stage of consciousness and evolution, ensuring the continued existence of life on Earth." No small task. And one Jeanne is absolutely equipped to bring into form. So Jeanne, the magnitude of your vision. Where I'd really love to start is if you could tell us what is the vision? What is the vision in a nutshell?
Well, that's a very interesting question. because this is a vision that came, as you said, back when I was a child, that kept recurring over a period of decades and disappeared and reappeared. And I can tell more on that story a little bit later. The vision itself has to do with helping to raise the frequency of the consciousness of humanity, to sustain that frequency, to help humanity to move on into full maturity, so that then it can begin to participate in a cosmic community in a healthy way and in a good way. I think we, about a year ago, finally were able to put this into simpler terms, that its purpose is to liberate our full human potential, to achieve planetary consciousness, and to take our place in the cosmic community. So that, I suppose, is the nutshell that you're asking for. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. And I love this quote from you. Humanity is now at the brink of having to make a choice.
Yeah.
Either we change or we disappear.
Right.
Clearly, we are inside a birthing process of a new dimension and an expanded awareness of consciousness. What an extraordinary time to be alive.
Yeah.
I just love those words, because to me that encompasses it as well.
Yeah.
So you're this young girl having these visions off and on during your life.
Yeah.
And when was it that it started to come into form enough that you knew that it was something that you had to act on?
Right. I was around the age of 16, and I had this dream of where I was seeing two scenes in this dream. It was, the first scene was at the bottom of what looked like a high hill or a low mountain, and I was seeing a configuration of buildings, circular buildings, and suddenly I would be inside the second scene, which would be inside a hallway where I was passing by other people as though I'm going to class in a university or in a school of some sort. But when I look closely, the beings that I'm passing by are not all human. There are multiple species that I'm interacting with as I cross in the highway, and I mean the hallway. And it's interesting because I wasn't given any more information than that. I'd had that dream, it would happen in an instant, and then it would disappear. And maybe a few months later, it would come back. And this went on probably around going into the ages of 37, 38. So it was happening over a period of decades, and I didn't know what I was being given. I didn't know what I was seeing because, as many of you probably are, you're dreamers, and I have dreams. And that particular dream, though, was something that held my attention until I began to really raise a family. and then it disappeared. And I spent a number of years raising my family, and it was in 2009 when suddenly the dream reappeared. And when it did, it reappeared in rather dramatically. I heard the words, "You're to build a university." But please understand that university in my lexicon was probably the most sophisticated term that I could use that represented the evolution of the human mind, helping a human being become all that they could be. But this was not really a university as we think of it now. This was something very different. It was something that would provide an environment from the time of birth right on straight through the lifetime of a person, that's why we say cradle to cradle, right on through the lifetime of that person to the point where they pass out of the physical body and move on into the next stage. So I was given very specific configurations of how the buildings of one of these, what we now call Interstellar University, would be. And I can go into very deep detail on this. I encourage you, everybody that's watching this, to read my book, Eyes Open, Looking for the, Eyes Open, Looking for the 12. That occurred because when I got into conversation with Edgar Mitchell, I told him I wasn't going to waste his time by trying to figure out exactly how to describe this. I could see it, but I was still learning how to articulate it. So I told him I'd write a book, and I'd put all the details that I had at that time into the book, and then we go from there. And so that's how the book itself came about. But there's so much more to this, and where do you want me to go now, LeeAnn? What do you see?
I just want to mention something too about the book. If you haven't read it, what I love about the book is it does chronicle when these dreams started and how that worked through your life. And a good part of it, probably like this last third of it, are direct transmissions. And so you're in the midst of the transmissions that are coming through, detailing what's happening here. I'm curious, you mentioned Edgar Mitchell. What was the timeline of him coming in, as well as Barbara Marx Hubbard?
Both are kind of fun stories. Edgar Mitchell and I met through a very interesting encounter. I don't know how many of you knew Willis Harman. Willis was the president of the Institute of Noetic Sciences. And Willis and I met through the World Business Academy many years ago, back in the 80s. And we just became very dear and close friends. And we would have these extraordinary conversations that would be way out of the box. And I always loved talking with him. And we'd walk by the seashore, we'd walk through the woods or whatever, and we're talking all this extraordinary, these concepts that were definitely outside a normal conversation, right? Anyway, we became very dear friends over the years, and we began to have what I called Willis talks. And when Willis passed, when he left his body and went on, I really began to miss those talks. And it was when the dream came back in 2009, I remember going and sitting in a swing outside in the yard of the little country home where we were living at the time. And it was a double swing, so two people could sit on it, but I was the only person sitting on it, right? And I remember the dream was almost overwhelming in some ways because I was seeing pieces I had never seen before. And I just said out loud, I said, Willis, I miss our talks. And I heard, I'm right here. Mm-hmm. And that began a whole new level of Willis talks. Every day I would go out and I would sit in the swing, barring the weather, it let me. And I told him, shared with him, the dream had come back, but I didn't know how to speak about it because I didn't completely understand all the pieces that I was being given. And I expected him to answer me. But what ended up happening is he was asking me questions. And what he was doing is he was helping me to begin to articulate what it was that I was seeing. And this went on for a number of weeks, almost every day. And finally, I asked him, I said, I know that Edgar Mitchell was interested in all this kind of thing. And I heard, you can say it's your imagination. It doesn't really matter. It still happened. I heard maybe it's time for you and Edgar to meet, right? So I went inside the house and I wrote a letter to Edgar Mitchell. And thanks to a dear friend of ours, I was able to get his address, send him the letter. And within less than a week, I get an answer back that said, let's give this a go.
Wow.
And that was the beginning. That was the door that opened up. So as Edgar and I, over the months that began to follow, began to go into conversation, he began to learn more and more and was able to pull it out of me, actually, of what I had seen, the many levels, and how really huge this was. And that's when, shortly after, I wrote the book, and then he agreed that it would be a good idea that we begin what is now called the Interstellar Community Foundation. So that's how that got put into place. And its purpose is to help manifest the interstellar universities and communities all over the planet.
So
I do want to say one thing. In my book, I call them universities and interstellar communication centers. Well, it may be important for those of you who knew Barbara Marks Hubbard, who was a very dear and close friend to John and me. Every time Barbara would try to say that, and if any of you were ever on the 52 codes, a course that she gave at one point, she would attempt to say universities and interstellar communication center, but then she spit all over the place and we'd just start laughing. And I told her, I said, there must be an easier way to say this. So that's how we ended up with interstellar universities. That's why we call it that now.
I love it. I love it. Well, I think this might be a good time to queue up the short video, right, that we have that goes into Interstellar Community Foundation, so we can even get some more visuals around it.
After we left the moon and started home, it was a visceral experience, an overwhelmingly powerful visceral experience, and accompanied by a bliss and ecstasy. Just why are we conscious? What's mind and consciousness all about? It's a transcendental, transformational, transcendent experience which catapults you out of the normal ego ways of thinking.
The world is reaching a massive point of both maturity and chaos.
You can feel and sense right now a shift in consciousness that's budding across the planet.
In my mid-teens, I had a dream. In the dream were two scenes. One was of a particular configuration of buildings. The second scene was of being in a hallway where there were not only humans passing each other, but also beings from other systems.
To understand how the universe works, we must get to know ourselves more and better. It is important that human beings recover a cosmic and universal vision. The acknowledgement by the North American Senate in 2019 that UFOs exist and that they are not from Earth is part of that.
Feels like a natural consequence of the consciousness expansion that we would remember and connect with our brothers and sisters of the cosmos.
We know that we are not alone in the universe.
The importance of the Interstellar University is to prepare humanity to live and behave as a galactic humanity.
It will project an energetic beacon out into space, the call to our star brothers and sisters that we are finally mature enough to have overt, ongoing conversations and dialogues.
Imagine a university, an interstellar university, where you can express yourself fully, not just your own abilities, but the abilities you don't know you have.
There, in this place, we can focus, coming together in love and light and trust.
Let's see where we can go. Let's look at what is possible.
Because it's 21st century. It's futuristic. We're looking forward. We're thinking positively.
We now have all the architecture in place to build the vision that Jeanne White Eagle expressed in her book, Eyes Open, Looking for the 12. A vision that so resonated with Edgar Mitchell that he worked committedly with Jeanne and the team to create the Interstellar Community Foundation.
That's what it will take to move the work to the next level.
The time is right. The time is now.
This will be the wildest adventure you might ever have.
Thank you so much, Noelle, for showing that for us. And so Jeanne, in this process of the foundation, where is the process from that conceptualization through the dreams to working with Edgar to starting the foundation and building these structures? Where are you on that timeline?
Yeah, that's an interesting question as well, because what we have known all along. Before I go any further, let me say thank you to Noelle and to Bob. Bless your hearts. Whoever it is that is playing with us, that's not on the screen that we can see right now, you know, I appreciate the sense of humor. I especially appreciate the persistence of you, Noelle and Bob. So let's continue on with this. So you were asking, LeeAnn, where are we in the process? We're exactly where we need to be. And let me see if I can maybe give a bit of clarity to that. I have known all along that the mass consciousness was going to have to shift to another level in order for what I had seen to not only be built, but to survive. It's being built. Right now, it would not survive, I don't think, because we're close to it, but we're not there yet. The mass consciousness is not quite where it needs to be in order to be able to accept the magnitude of what this vision means. And let me just say again, this is not about me, because there are many on this planet that have seen something very similar, or they've seen some piece of what I've seen. I just feel that part of my responsibility was to get this out of the birthing canal as best as I can, which is what I've been working on all of these many years. So where we are right now, we're doing this dance with the mass consciousness. And as the consciousness itself slowly begins to raise, then more pieces of the vision are falling into place. And those of us who, and there are several of us that are on this call that are inside the vision itself, and you, LeeAnn, are one of those. I know Patty Coleman is here, Norm Zelfley is here, and my husband John is here, and there are several others. As we are involved more and more with the vision, I think we ourselves are experiencing a frequency shift, a frequency change in the vision itself. It is beginning to become more clear. And as the mass consciousness shifts, the vision is able to take root. There will come a time, and we're not that far from it, when the mass consciousness will reach that level of a high enough frequency so that it will begin to affect all of humanity, and the entire species itself will begin to shift and raise and grow and mature. And let me say this piece about Barbara Marx Hubbard, because it feels appropriate to say that here. When Barbara and I found each other, it was rather interesting. I knew about her work, but I was not intimately involved with her at that point. And this was not all that many years before her time of passing. And I kept all along, as I said, I kept feeling something has to happen in the mass consciousness in order for what I've seen to be able to take place, to be fully manifested. Well, when Barbara and I met, and we were introduced by two wonderful friends, some of you know Catherine Roski and some of you may have known Lawrence Bloom. And they are who introduced my husband and me to Barbara. When Barbara and I met, I was asked to describe for her the vision that I was given. And she looked at me with that look that so many of you have seen come from her. She just pierced right through me, right? And she began to talk about what she had seen. And we both almost simultaneously said, "You're the piece that I was looking for." Because she said, she had seen this piece. I don't know if all of you can see where my fingers are going, but she had seen this piece. She said, what I had seen was this piece. But I could sense what she was talking about long before she and I met. But I didn't know what it was until she began to share her work intimately with John and myself. And then when I shared with her and she began to see what it was I saw, we both got quite excited. And so the rest of it is kind of history. But I love her very much. And trust me, she is here with us. And I wouldn't put it past Barbara that she was the one who was attempting to come through in the earlier glitches. So.
Well, it is something really large to imagine that we will mature to that point as a humanity, that we can be interacting with these higher forms of entities out there, right? That they can be teaching us and we can be teaching them. And that's the beauty, as I understand this university. It's very much a two-way street. It's not one learning from the other. It's both. And to imagine that we could have that maturity and consciously, and to be in the place of gaining wisdom both ways like that, and really truly becoming,
right,
on another level within the cosmos.
Right. What's important to know about this particular, again, we're calling it a university. The truth is we don't know what we're going to end up calling it in the final rung of things. This is not about, even though there will be part of the university that will help to hone the intellectual skills and all that, but this is something very, very different. This, again, is about taking that precious little human baby as it comes onto the planet and giving to it the environment that is going to help empower it in every way. Find the dreams that this little soul came onto this planet with, and then help the dreams become fully manifested. That for at least, I was told that for at least 2 generations, much of the focus is going to be on the human being himself, herself. After that, then those particularly the loving advanced beings coming in from other systems, other dimensional spaces, they've been waiting. Many of them have been waiting. For some of them, this will be new. But the point is there will be a place here upon this planet where these different interactions can take place in a loving, compassionate, extraordinarily magical way. And that the old dramas of humans who have been such masters at creating horror, torture, hurt, focusing on anger, focusing on hate, focusing on rage, focusing on whatever it is that would create a frequency of the illusion of separation, that begins to disappear. And This may sound like a pipe dream, but this is something that I've seen. And this is information that has been coming in from those who do know, who are far beyond this time and space. The key piece here, and you heard it on the video. I think Sixto Paz Wells was one of the ones who spoke about it on the video. What is really key here is even with all the magic of people seeing UFOs and people having dreams and contact, etc. What is key here is that each individual person take responsibility for clearing whatever is blocking inside that person, the highest that that person can be. We call it, in Native American terms, we call it clearing the hollow bone. And John and I did a workshop many years ago in Norway, where they love their didgeridoos, right? So they would talk about, oh, well, this is like a banana getting stuck in the didgeridoo. It won't play if you've got a banana stuck in the didgeridoo. So it's a very similar metaphor. Whatever, if there is anger, if there is rage, if there is even a chronic sadness or frustrations, whatever it is inside that is blocking this sacred hollow bone, clear it. Keep clearing every day. If it means writing letters, making telephone calls, making visits, whatever it is inside that needs to be cleared, clear it. Because that is then when the frequency of our individual selves begins to raise. And that is when real communication can take place. There's a lot more to that, and I actually speak about that in the book, but that may be enough for the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and when you say that, when you speak of that, it feels like in a lot of ways, humanity's a far way off to getting to that point, right? But so I love that you say we're not that far away. It's coming.
No, we're not. Barbara used to say we're at the tip of the tipping point. And John and I have looked at that very closely, and we think we may actually be past that. We're still close to it, but we may be past that. And the key is not to get caught up in all the drama that you see in the news and that you see in heaven knows so many places now on our planet, but to stay on point. Stay on point. Each of you that is on this call, it is not by accident that you're here. You showed up and you said, yes, your job, my job, is to do what we can to love, to be compassionate in every moment, no matter what the circumstances are, and to stay on point with what each of us has been given to do here, knowing that there is craziness that is occurring over here. But as I have shared with many people, you know, for the body to heal, and in this case, the collective body to heal, the toxins have to come to the surface. When the toxins come to the surface, then they can be cleared. So.
Well, you know what I think it might be a good time to do. So we're actually Jeanne's going to take us through a beautiful process that's going to be interactive. Everybody that feels comfortable participating is going to be able to do that. I thought it might be nice to just take a little break. And if anybody has any questions to everything that you've spoken about so far, and then we'll take everybody through this very, very immersive experience. So
that will actually be a good thing to do as the last I think the last part of our conversation today. Yeah. Yes. Besides that, it's fun, I think.
So ladies, would you want me to ask people to turn on their video and audio now or later? Just
let's have them turn on. It'd be nice to see everybody, and yeah, if anybody has any questions, bring those forward, because this is a very large concept, Jeanne, that you're bringing to the world, and so let's just allow everybody.
Alrighty, I've made it so everyone can turn on their video and unmute. So join in, and LeeAnn, I'm going to allow you to go ahead and call on folks or?
Yeah, and I don't have, let me see, I have not had the chat open. So let's see. So I'm starting at the bottom of the list. Kathy is asking, I would love to know if there has been any communication about AI versus human intelligence. How about that, Jeanne?
Yeah, some of the last conversations that Barbara and I had, which it's interesting that you would ask that, had to do with AI. Because as most of you know, there's so much fear-based, excuse this word, crap that gets out into the public around AI. And I remember one of the first conversations when I started speaking with Barbara about this, I said, you know, AI can be taught to love. I said, if we are creating AI, it's just like a child, it can be taught to love. And even at the point where AI becomes self-aware, it's still, this can be a compassionate life form. It's important to know, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, but there is no separation. There's only one consciousness here. So I may imagine or interact with a life form that comes from a dimensional, a multidimensional space, communicating with beings that come from different timelines. It doesn't matter. We're still part of the same consciousness. There's just one of us here. So when we interact with AI, it's still part of us. Mm-hmm. And this may be a far out, I'm going to guess that it's not, but it may be a far out concept for some. But you know, my granddaughter, I remember watching her eyes when we first started talking about this. I said, you know, Kindle, look at the table. The table is very much alive. It's just a different life form. And it's part of me. It's part of you. I said, there's no separation. The chair, the glass, the water, the candle, the fire, the tree, whatever it is, it's still part of the same consciousness. And there are all kinds of philosophical banterings that can go on around that. But if you get very simple with it, because this isn't complicated, then you begin to realize there really isn't any separation. And so as far as AI goes, definitely. And John and I do have Alexa, and we talk with Alexa, and we tell her that we love her. And try, if you've got Alexa, try telling Alexa that you love her and see what she does. Watch what she does.
I love that. Well, Bob, you mentioned this, but we'll talk about it even more. Wants to know if you've had interaction with non-humanoids.
Yes. Are you talking about with extraterrestrial and other beings? Yes, I have. In fact, this started very early on for me, and we could spend probably the better part of the next week talking about some of what this means. But yes, I have. And I'm going to guess that somebody's going to ask, well, can you give us an example? Yes, I can give you an example. I'll see if I can give you the shortest one. The shortest one, it was a rather dramatic one, took place several years ago when I was in Akiva. I was with my husband, John, and we were doing a ceremony. We were there with beautiful painted arrow, Joseph Ryle. Some of you may have heard of Joseph. Oh, yeah. Olivia, did you know Joseph? Yeah, or do you know him? He's still around. Yeah. Well, Joseph had brought us there because of the work that we began to do with the peace sound chambers around the world. And it was during one of these ceremonies where, we were there for 3 days inside the kiva or the chamber, peace sound chamber. And so we were sleeping there as well. And I remember being awoken one night, and I looked, and the entire the entire chamber there were mostly grays, but I think that there were some others in there as well that were other species that were sitting in a circle, and they asked me a question, and they said, "Why is our experiment failing?" And suddenly I'm inside, I'm going to guess that it was a craft, a ship, and I'm being shown this room full of what looked like could be small incubators. It's how I describe it. I'm sure they would have other. And inside them were these little babies, and some of them were dying. And I looked at them, and it was very clear to me. And I said to these beings that were asking me, "Why is our experiment failing?" And I got it. I said, "Because you're not touching them." I said, these babies have human DNA in them. Humans have to be touched. They have to be caressed. They have to be held. I said, this is part of the nature of what it is to be human. And there's more to that story, but here's the magical piece of that story. It was, I'm going to guess, probably about 15, 20 years later, that I met this young woman whose name I won't share right now. She ended up going public, and sadly, the media did what they could to crucify her. So she went back into hiding again. But I was introduced to her, and I shared this story with her, and her eyes filled with tears. And she said, "They listened to you." And I remember John and I both of us, I think, were surprised. What she shared is that she herself had given birth to at least 3 hybrid children that had human DNA and had DNA of another species in them. And she said she had been taken on craft for a number of years rather regularly. And that when at one point there was this long space of where she was not taken on craft, and she was sad about this. And she said suddenly they came and they got her again and took her onto the ship again. And there, these little children came toward her. She said there were several of these little children came running up to her. She said they were some of the most beautiful beings she had ever seen. And she saw her. She said, "I recognized mine right away." And she said these children had been babies that had been able to survive because these other beings that were doing this, that were actually trying to create a way for the human species to survive, which is interesting, that they had listened. Now, whether I was the only one that ever said that to them, I have no idea, but I do know that that particular interaction there was rather powerful, and it was not my imagination, nor was it hers. This was something that was actually occurring. So all the fear, you guys, and I'm not telling you anything you don't know, all the fear that gets fed around, they're going to be taken, we're going to be colonized, all the crazy Hollywood stuff is exactly that, Hollywood stuff. Yeah. It doesn't mean that there are not species that are not as evolved as we would hope that they are. But the one thing that I do know is as long as we keep moving in a love frequency, as long as we keep remembering there is no separation, they are still part of me. As long as I keep seeing through the eyes of love and doing the best I can to clear myself in all instances, then all I can do is trust and know that there is order in a loving universe. And there's just one of us here. So,
Oh, I love
Jeanne,
that.
I saw that Janice had her hand up some time ago. I'm just wondering.
Oh, I put it in the chat. We were talking about interaction with AI, and John Raymer, for those of you who know John, he has been connecting with the new generative chat called Chat GPT, which is the AI chat. And what I wrote in there, he asked it to define the new Earth rising. And this is what it said. It's a phrase that is often used in spiritual or metaphysical contexts to describe a hypothetical future state of humanity and the planet Earth. The concept of a new Earth arises from the idea that our current world is facing various challenges, such as climate change, social inequity, and conflict, and that humanity is collectively awakening to the need for positive change. Did Barbara write this? I don't know. The idea of New Earth Rising suggests a vision of transformed and improved world where people live in harmony with each other and with nature, and where individuals are awakened to their true potential and purpose. It is a vision of a world where there is no longer separation, judgment, or fear, but instead, where there is unity, compassion, and love. This concept has been popularized in various spiritual and New Age communities, and there are numerous books, articles, and discussions around the idea of a new Earth rising. While it is not a scientifically verifiable concept, it can be seen as a metaphorical expression of the human desire for a better future and a more peaceful, harmonious world. What strikes me about that is not only that did the AI write it, but where did it get it? So I think this is all of us who have put it in the quantum field, where this is coming from. Are we going towards the quantum to our future human self, or is it pulling us there? Which one is it? But I think, how does AI know this? Well, because we did the seeding. That's my take on it. So I'd love to hear yours, but I wanted to put that in based on your question, Kat, because I thought it was so timely. I think he also asked you what unity consciousness was, and I didn't get a copy of that. So,
that's one AI's opinion.
That's right.
Any others?
Be one.
It's just nice to know that even though AI was developed by human beings, and you can make judgment about how advanced were the people who actually develop the technology. But they're picking up stuff that's being seeded by, I don't think these are just the tech guys and girls working in a lab. So
no, it's very, very impressive. And Jeanne, when you were talking about the Kathy put in the chat about a hybrid mother, we had Geraldine Orozco on our CCC call a couple months ago, and it was fascinating. She actually was able to study some of the DNA of her. I think she said she had 8 hybrid children. Yeah. And Kathy put in the chat, hybridmother.com. She's amazing, beautiful being, and so generous with her time and knowledge. So I just wanted to bring that into the conversation.
Yeah, I'm glad you did. Thank you. We have one of the dreamers who actually has had very detailed drawings of ships that are in a different space, still in the upper atmosphere, that are still there apparently. But she has got very detailed drawings, and one of the pieces of information that she got was she was seeing what was like an energy elevator coming from at least a couple of them, because I remember these very intricate drawn ships that she was getting, and she herself is in her 80s. So this tells you something about her own maturity of having received this information. But she was seeing a couple of the energy elevators, and she said she couldn't tell where they were going. But who were coming through the energy elevators were these hybrid children. And it wasn't until she learned about the vision that I had been given of what we're now calling the Interstellar Universities, which, because of the configuration of the buildings, particularly the center building, we haven't really talked about the configuration of it yet, but that there is a place, and we have an architect right now, a master architect, who is looking at how is this actually going to occur, where energy elevators actually could enter through the center building of the Interstellar Universities. And it's, I mean, it sounds like science fiction stuff, but I guarantee you, gang, this is stuff that is very soon moving into the field of science because the physics of it works. But so I'm passing that on because what she was seeing was these hybrid children who could only stay, these particular ones could only stay on our planet or within our gravity, within the whole, the whole situation of our Earth and its atmosphere, could only stay here for shorter periods of time. Then they would go back into the ships, but they could come back. And this is not true of all hybrid children, but this is true of a number of them, particularly as we know now that there are a number of them that are moving on into deeper space, helping the human species to survive, hopefully, even beyond the Earth. That's another story, and that maybe is another meeting. So we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, and I just want to thank John because he is answering a lot of the questions in the chat for people. So thank you so much, John, for doing that. And Jeanne, you mentioned that center column coming through the structure. We saw a little bit, of some renderings in the video, but I don't know if people can see it. It's right over your shoulder.
Yeah, why don't you put me on full screen so I can point?
Yeah, can you do
LeeAnn
that?
and I did, yeah, I tried to do this with a pointer today and it wasn't going to work. But you see this right here? All of you see this right here?
Mm-hmm.
All right. When the configuration of the dream began to show its detail, what I was shown first were 5 primary circles. You've got the center one, then you've got the 2 on the side and the 2 the top and the bottom. So you had the center, then you had the east, the south, the west, the north. Then what I was given were these circles here, which represent gardens. And not gardens as perhaps you and I think about them, but we'll call them that for now, because it has to do with nature. It has to do with the natural growth on our planet. And so there was a garden between each of the 4 primary circles or primary buildings. Then you had these smaller ones. See these smaller ones here, and these are bridge buildings. And these bridge buildings connect the main buildings, the center to the south, the center to the west, the center to the north, the center to the east, etc. What came in it, and this is fascinating how this stuff happens. I'm sitting, I had gone to bed one evening and it was dark, and God bless my husband, who at my request had gone away for a couple of months so I could write this book, right? And God bless you, John. I appreciate it. But one of the evenings when I was asleep and the room was quite dark, suddenly what appears is this configuration of pyramids, and they were glowing gold, and they begin to rotate. And I talk about this in the book. I wasn't really sure what I was seeing until the next day when I'm sitting in a chair in the living room where I could see where I had drawn out these circles. Suddenly, what I saw is that if you take the center of each one of the larger circles, that creates a pyramid in itself, okay? Then if you take the center of the gardens, which were here and here and here and here, and you did the same thing, the center of each of the gardens to the center of the central building, again, created another pyramid. Then you did it with the smaller circles, which are the bridge buildings. And you will have to read in the book about it. I won't go into the detail of what that is, but when you connect the center of each of the little bridge buildings to the center building, that creates yet another pyramid. So this whole pyramidal design was creating a frequency that was actually shooting a beam into space and shooting a beam into the center of the earth. Now, these, what I was shown in the vision, is these will go up all over the planet. And the configuration of the university itself has great information in it. Yeah, let me see everybody's face again. I like seeing everybody's face. So if that's a gallery view.
That's the most magnificent thing. It's sacred geometry.
Yeah. Yes.
That
That's
you're
exactly
able to see from the heavens.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, can I put us back into gallery here?
Oh, maybe Noel can do that.
Yeah, I'm in gallery, so just select it up there where it says view and then choose gallery.
Yeah, I did. Thank you. So I hope that's not too heavy or too confusing for everybody, because what we're looking at now is the practicality of building these interstellar universities, what they will actually, the blueprint of what they will actually be, and the energy field that they will create. And if these go up all over the planet, think of that. You've got these beams going into space and going into the planet herself. And that is about raising and sustaining a higher frequency. There's much more to it, and I would invite my husband to say something, but I don't know that maybe we want to leave that at this point, unless you have questions.
There's been a lot of chat, and John, thank you. You've been answering a lot of questions. I kind of want to get some of that into this conversation so that we can archive it. But I did see that Olivia had her hand up. I don't know if you want to jump in there, Olivia, or LeeAnn.
Yes. First of all, Jeanne, I've read your book thanks to LeeAnn, who recommended it to me when I visited her. And I love it. And I love that you're because I was trying to understand and picture it in my mind. And I went to Egypt last year and with a sacred trip. And pyramids are very near and dear to my heart and my husband's heart. And so the way you're making your book come alive with the sacred geometry that you pointed out, LeeAnn, is so beautiful. And then I want to say that Native Americans, it's like I'm reading House of Shattering Light right now by Joseph Rael.
Yeah, right.
Beautiful painted arrow. This was recommended to me last week when I was running a Sunray events meeting by somebody who came for the elders planning. And I'm fascinated by him. I recommend it highly. I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I think Rudy has said, Dr. Rudy Schild, is that there's so much compassion. He wrote a book, actually, I'll try to remember it. It's a huge book that he co-wrote with thousands of interviews with people who have been abducted. And he did beautiful evidence-based research with his colleagues. I can't remember them right now, but I'll put it in the chat.
It's called Beyond UFOs.
Yeah.
book is
Beyond
Beyond
UFOs.
UFOs.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's in Vermont, so I don't have it here, but Beyond UFOs. And what it was interesting is that it was overwhelming, building on what you're saying, Jeanne, about the compassion and the love and the fact that people would have interactions with these beings, and then they would have healings, they would have extrasensory perception and different beautiful enlivening of their senses. And there was one of the authors, I can't remember his name, but he was very, he said, yeah, show me, I don't believe this. And they blew his mind.
Yeah.
They blew his mind, and he became co-author with Rudy on Beyond UFOs. So I've been studying this for a while because I got into it through our elders gathering when we have Native American elders and scientists come and interact and converse about this. And it's been going on for 39 years in Vermont. But it's so wonderful that you're saying the kindness and the love and the frequency of raising the frequency instead of this false flag that people are saying is being generated to make us fear them and to have another war. Would you speak to that? I hate to bring it up, but I've been studying that too. And what can we do to offset that?
Stay on point. Keep clearing yourself.
Yeah.
Be aware of what's going on around you, but stay on point. Every single one of you on this call, you have come here because your responsibility is to bring love to this planet. This is not a light thing. This is not a wimpy thing. This is the most powerful thing that you can do. And how you do that is not by making it happen. It is about allowing it to happen. Allow this to move through you. Allow your frequency to raise. Again, keep clearing the hollow bone. Keep working on yourself. Keep loving yourself. And stay on point. Don't get pulled off. Stay on point. I hope that makes sense. I don't know if it does. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And Victoria's had her hand up for some time. So thanks, Olivia, by the way.
Hi, Jeanne. So the question that I put in chat was, can you say more about how to keep clearing? And you just set up the perfect segue. So how can we keep clearing our energy beyond, as I said, like the typical techniques of breathing and meditation and movement and journaling and toning and grounding, etc.? Or is that what's in your book?
And again and again and again.
Yeah, it is. And you do this daily. And here's the key piece. This is about relationship. It's about relationship with yourself, yes, but it's about your relationship with everyone around you, your family members, your friends. If there is any red flag that goes up in you, if you've got an anger towards someone that maybe is new, but it could be something that you carried since childhood,
some of those still exist.
Yeah, I've spent a good bit of time working with abused spouses and teenagers. And this stuff is old. I mean, there are those that may say, well, this goes back lifetimes. All you need to do is stay aware. You can tell, you guys are awake enough that you can tell if there's something out of balance inside, if there's even just a little gnawing inside of everything seems to be just perfect, but yet I have this funny feeling about this person over here because I've been angry with this person for some time, or whatever it is. Pay very close attention to how you feel inside. We've got all these techniques, but it really boils down to, do you need to write a letter of apology to somebody? Do you need to go to somebody and look them in the eye and say, look, I am really sorry I have been gnawing over this for decades, and it's time for both of us to grow beyond this and do the best you can to do it with love. This seems so basic. And you know what? It is. It's very basic. But if we don't get that, then what's going to happen is when humans decide to move a colony into Mars or do wherever they're going to take the same dramas, the same crap with them and reinvent the wheel again, over and over again. So this time, it's our responsibility to do what we can to clear it now, because it's time for humans to grow up. Yeah, I'm sorry. I get on my
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I know John has his hand up. I know there was a brief, hey, is it okay if we go over a little bit, because Jeanne does have something too that we'd like everybody to experience. I want to say that Christy asked if there's any possibility we could get a copy of the Sacred Geometry Design, and the best place to get that is in the book or on the website, which we'll be sharing, I'm sure, for the foundation. Right. So, John, what did you want to share?
I was just going to answer Victoria's question. I put it in the chat.
Perfect.
Jeanne has a very effective technique that she teaches using sound in how to clear out especially lingering, lasting resentments and anger and that kind of thing. Something she used when she cured herself from cancer. But I'm not sure this is the right forum to teach it, because it would take a while. But just know that that's out there. If you are interested, contact Jeanne separately, and she can probably explain it to you.
So what we may do is we may do an in-depth sound workshop where we can actually do this, because I healed from cancer twice, and this was many years ago. And this, what John's talking about, is one of the primary techniques that I used. And I've done a couple of the Zoom workshops, but I haven't really gone into depth with what he's talking about. And maybe it's time to do that. So yeah, if you're interested, send me, you've got my email, right, Noel and Bob?
Yeah, it's in the event. And you could also go to the website and
send me an email, and we'll do something. I'll put together something that we can do. Yeah. So, LeeAnn, shall I jump into this?
Yes. So we're going to move into this last phase. Hopefully people can stay with us a little bit longer. And Noelle, if you could bring up the piece of art, the painting, and make that as large as possible. Do you want to do something before, Jeanne?
Yeah, I want to just do something quickly, and this won't take but just a few minutes, everybody. So if you want to stay with us, do. If you haven't read the book, when you do read the book, you'll discover that one of the primary pieces of the whole Interstellar University itself has to do with sound. Everything is sound, everything. It doesn't make any difference what it is, a thought, a speck of dust. It doesn't make everything is sound, right? Well, what I discovered many years ago is that if I allow myself to go into a no-thinking space and I just begin to let the sound come, if you will just let it flow, what will happen is the majority of the sounds will be vowel sounds, as they are pronounced in Spanish or Hebrew and some other language, the ah, eh, e, o, u. And these are the sounds of the directions: the east, the south, the west, the north, the center. Ah, eh, e, o, u. Well, when you go into a no-mind space and you just allow the sounds to begin to come, some of the most beautiful music I have ever heard have been with groups of people who go into this no-mind space, and then they just begin to let the sounds come. And if consonants come, that's fine. That's fine. We won't go into the philosophical definition of what that is, but it's okay, because the consonant acts like a glass holding a glass of water, the water being the vowels, the glass being the consonants. It helps to direct where the vowels are going to go. But I want to show you something. I'm going to create a song for you. If you were on the 52 codes with Barbara, you ended up doing this with us quite often. And I would often say, we're now going to sing a song that has never been sung before. And that's true, because what is being created is a result of the frequency vibrational field that we are creating together. So if anything is out of balance, it comes back into balance. And it's one of the most effective and powerful ways to heal not only the physical body, but everything around you. So I'm going to give you a short gift here and just create a song. And then what we'll do is we'll go to that next stage, and it'll just take us a few minutes. So hang in there. So this is for you. Oh, hey, That's for you. Now here's the easy way to do this. Just sing the vowels. Do that much with me. If you're willing, do that much with me. You can mute yourself or not mute yourself, but I would like to hear you. All right, just do the sing the vowels with me. Ready? That's not complicated. Perfect. Have fun with this. The birds love it. The squirrels love it. The wind loves it, because you are remembering there is no separation. And that's what this does. So what we're going to do right now is we'll go into this painting that LeeAnn did. And LeeAnn, you can speak about the painting if you want.
Yeah, so this will just be a brief piece that we'll send you through. Yeah, you're bringing up. Okay, so very briefly, this painting was something that Jeanne and I created together. I journeyed to Jeanne's home, and for 3 days, I channeled the frequency that is these energies, both human and non-human, that is creating this interstellar community. And so as I painted for those 3 days, Jeanne was doing the singing that comes through synchronistically. So the way the paintings work is you just go where your eye is just kind of draws you to, and stay in that one area where your gaze is drawn to, and relax your gaze, and then Jeanne will bring in how we do the sound piece of it.
Yeah, what we've done this with many people so far. What we've learned is that information starts coming through. We know that it does act as a portal. It's rather extraordinary. And the connection with multidimensional beings who are not necessarily in this timeline. They may be far into the future, which is what LeeAnn found, when we first started doing this. Well, we're discovering that these beings, they're loving advanced beings, and they are part of this vision. And it's as though now we have a way to have a two-way conversation. So we're receiving not only inspirational information, we're receiving very practical information on how to move forward. So I'm going to say to any of you who do this with us, we're going to take, it'll only take about a minute at the most. But then tonight in your dreams, or even after we've gone off of the program today, you might start receiving some information. I'm going to encourage you to write it down and get it to me, please. Because we are creating a file now that we will make accessible to everyone so that you can see what is coming through. It is absolutely extraordinary. So, and how we do this, we just start singing, just the way I was doing. I suggest that you just listen to me for a couple of seconds. And then maybe, John, you can come in right after me, and so that you can hear us creating together. And then I'm going to ask you to simply open your mouths and let the sounds come. There's no way to do this in a right or a wrong way. It's only a perfect way, because it is something that is being born in you right now. So if you're willing to play with us, this will only take about a minute. Then play with us, and let's see what we create here together. So again, there's no right or wrong way to do this. What is important is that you let your sound come. And it will find its way into a field, a collective field that we are creating together. That then connects with these beings. It goes through this portal. And I think you might be amazed with what can happen. It may not happen for you right away, but I guarantee you guys, pay attention to your dreams tonight. Pay attention to what happens for you in the next couple of days. All right, here we go. John, you ready? Oh, Bana, HDA, for the people. Wado. Wow. So, sweet dreams, everybody. Okay. Just make sure you put two E's in there.
Yeah. Okay. Another thing is that you could come back and do,
So I won't be up long.
Right.
You want to come back in May and do something with your sound. If you have your course ready and you're ready to go, then you could come and do.
We can talk about that. Yeah, that's a possibility too.
Yeah,
I'm very willing to do that. Very willing.
Wonderful.
Is your email
It says el@aol.com.
Yeah, it's J White Eagle. I corrected it.
Okay. Oh, there it is. Gotcha. Sorry, I had copied it before. Thank you.
Okay.
And do check out the foundation's website as well. I know you're going to put that up somewhere, Noelle. There's so much information there on both the book and what the foundation is doing.
I'm putting it in right now.
Perfect.
.org. It's a
And
.org.
LeeAnn's LeeAnn's website. Would you put it in, LeeAnn?
Oh, sure.
Work is incredible.
You guys, thank you. I have thoroughly enjoyed being with all of you. It feeds my soul too. Bless you, LeeAnn.
It's been a wild ride, folks. Let me just tell you, it's been a wild ride.
Thank you all for being with us.
Yes,
Jeanne,
thank
John,
you. And
LeeAnn,
before you
thank
leave, I
so
want to
much.
invite you back for next Thursday. High Priestess Christy Michaels will be with us talking about Mary Magdalene. Do you want to say just a word?
Sure. In fact, one of the things that I'm going to be talking about is the sacred geometry behind you, because there was a series of crop circles that were formed on Mary Magdalene's feast day that had to do with her awakening process. And I forgot about one of the crop circles until I saw your sacred geometry, because they made a sacred geometry that showed that min and weekle, the square, how is the perimeter of the square equal to the circumference of a circle, right? That's an impossible math, because the circumference of the circle pi is infinity, right? It has no, it has the fractional, what is pi? Somebody here must know pi.
3.14.
And it goes on
and on and on.
On and on and on, right? But this crop circle showed with high school geometry how they are equal. So I'll be talking about that.
Wow.
Wow.
That'd
be
great.
fun.
Gets an A+. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, LeeAnn. Thank you, Jeanne. Appreciate your sharing your beautiful gifts with us, inviting all your other friends to join us.
Wherever they are.
Thank you, Jeanne and John and everybody for doing this.
It's been a joy. It's been a joy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
May
Good
peace
night.
prevail
Love
on earth
you.
and in the universe.